So today we're talking to Stephen and Justine Henschke from the Henschke Family Wine Company in the Eden Valley, South Australia, who are of course among our top wineries of the year 2022 at the Real Review. And we welcome them today, and good to see you guys, and congratulations on being the top wineries again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ewan. Great to see you too. And we're very, very excited to be in the list again in the top 20.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And I see you've got a bottle of the Cainton Euphonium there, which is the same wine I have beside me here. I was just having a sniff and a taste and reacquainting myself with this wine. I noticed that the designation on the wine is Barossa, and it smells very Eden Valley to me. It smells like Henschke Eden Valley. And of course, Barossa could include Barossa Valley and Eden Valley. Is there a fair bit of Eden Valley in this wine?
Yes, the basis of the wine is Eden Valley, and in fact from our own vineyard at just out of Eden Valley up on the range, from vines that were planted by my father Cyril back in the 60s. But there's also a combination of fruit from mostly in the old days relatives, obviously as the family sort of expanded across Eden Valley down into the Barossa. And so those grower inputs help give the complexity to this wine, but also cover the varieties of Shiraz, Cabernet, Merlot and Cabernet Franc that we have in the wine.
All the Henschke wines have a name that means something, and the Cainton Euphonium here, do you play a musical instrument, Justine? It seems like it's a bit of a Henschke family thing.
Yeah, we don't have the Henschke family band anymore, but we do have the euphonium here in our cellar door. So anyone who has played brass wind instruments before is invited to give it a go. But my brothers and I grew up playing the piano, and I've always been very keen singer. I'm not sure how talented I am, but do love to sing, and was always involved in jazz bands and blues bands when I was going through schooling. And the piano, probably need a little bit rusty on the piano playing. But we have always been a very music loving family.
Yes. Brass bands, of course, are a very German thing, aren't they?
They're very Barossan thing, absolutely. So every festival, every celebration in the Barossa, even nowadays, includes generally a brass band, which it's just gorgeous music.
And the Henschke family band were in the second and third generations, and I guess they started it, but there were all sorts of German Silesian families that were part of that band as well.
And I guess ironically that it was called the Henschke family band, but there were many other families involved. The Rattayers and the Albrechts and the Linkies and the Schulzes and what have you would have all been a part of the original Henschke family band back in those days. That my great-grandfather Paul Gotthard formed in 1888, and it was continued by his son Paul Alfred, who was a little boy playing the bass drum, keeping the beat for the band in the first generation. So it's just amazing, isn't it?
Very good.
Put that much responsibility into a 10-year-old boy, but there you go.
That's
they
good.
were very inclusive as well.
So behind you, Stephen, there's a picture of the Hill of Grace Vineyard with the church in the very distant background. How important is this vineyard to you? I mean, everybody thinks of Hill of Grace. The first thing they think of when the name Henschke comes up, it's such an iconic vineyard. Do you think Henschke would be what it is without the Hill of Grace?
Yes, it's interesting, Ewan, because historically, if you think of my dad really embracing table wine as a winemaker back in the early 50s and making single vineyard Rieslings and single vineyard Shirazes, his first wine was Mount Edelson in 1952. So if anything, and that was made from 40-year-old Shiraz vines planted by the Angus family on the Mount Eddleston vineyard. And then the first Hill of Grace wasn't actually made until 1958, so some 6 years later. So you'd think Cyril would have, I guess, kept that recognition with Mount Eddleston. So it should when Henschke comes up, it should actually come up as Henschke Mount Eddleston rather than Henschke Hill of Grace. But Hill of Grace had such a lovely name. The vineyard was much older. I mean, it's a historic part of the Henschke family going back many generations to my great-great-grandfather on my grandmother's side, Nicholas Stanitsky, who planted the vineyard. So I guess that relationship and the village connection where the vineyard was planted, the Gnadenberg Church, the old stone Lutheran churches, which is one of the oldest in the Barossa, it just has such a strong link and connection with Henschke. And it's a beautiful name. It's very euphonic, if you like.
And the vines were already 100 years old when Cyril made the first Hill of Grace.
Yes, that's an astonishing fact, isn't it? It always amazes me.
A beautiful vineyard and a beautiful part of Australia, I think, to connect with the great wines of the world.
I totally agree. When you go to the Hill of Grace, it's got an aura. It's got a sort of atmosphere to it, which is quite special. But let's move on to other matters. And it seems to me that for a family wine company, you have rather a lot of brands, rather a lot of labels. And you every few years there's something new comes out, and it's always exciting and always interesting. Have you got something waiting in the wings for us?
We were actually just prior to speaking to you, Hugh, and we've been brainstorming another new release that is going to come out soon. We certainly do have a lot of different wines that we make, that's for sure. But I think what is interesting is that they've all a lot of the wine labels that are on the fringe of our core range are very small parcel wines, and we do have a Barbera coming out, and we were just brainstorming names earlier, and this wine comes from 2 rows planted in our Eden Valley vineyard alongside the Nebbiolo, and the Barbera goes into the Nebbiolo from time to time, depending on how the wine is and how the fruit is looking each season. But 2021 gave us an amazing vintage and an opportunity to release a single varietal Barbera. So that's a perfect example of us continually working with our fruit and little curios and wanting to release exciting, very small parcels. So yes, there are quite a lot of different wines in the portfolio, but they are extremely limited. And with our Lenswood vineyard recovering from the bushfire, we're actually feeling like we need as much wine as we can find at the moment. We do have a lot of wines that we haven't been able to make since the bushfire hit in 2019.
Excellent. Well, we better wrap it up there. Thank you very much for your time today, Stephen and Justine Henschke from the Henschke Family Wine Company in Eden Valley. Again, congratulations on yet again being in the top wineries of Australia 2022, and thanks for accompanying us today on The Real Review.
Thank you, Ewan.
Pleasure. Thank you,
Great
Ewan.
to see you again.